The Human Resource Manager, Area of Study 2. The Human Resource Manager handles the relationship between employer and employees. In a small to medium business, it is the owner, whereas in a large business, it is a specialized Human Resource Manager or department. Their job is to coordinate activities, acquire employees, develop them, maintain them, and terminate them. A successful management of employees uses strategies to meet the business objectives, which is usually sales, market share, customer experience, productivity, and motivation in the workplace. Theories of motivation. The first theory is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, made by Abraham Maslow. There's 5 different needs, going from lower needs to higher needs. So the first one is psychological needs, which in business is satisfactory pay and accommodations. There is the need for safety and security, which is working conditions and job security. The third is love and belonging, and this is for teamwork, decision-making, and supportive management. The fourth is self-esteem, which can be promotion, recognition, and getting responsibility. Then the fifth is self-actualization, which can be implemented through creative and interesting jobs and job advancement. The pros of this theory are that it's easy to understand and it can satisfy several needs and can help understand the individual needs of staff members. Though the cons are that it's only a theory and it may be difficult to identify what stage and appropriate strategy each employee is at a different stage. Second theory is the goal-setting theory by Locke and Latham. There's clarity, which makes goals measurable and unambiguous, simple, clear, and concise, so employees know what is expected in a specific time frame. Then there is challenge, which motivates employees. It should be achievable whilst extending them, but it shouldn't be too hard, and there may be rewards available. Then there's commitment, which is actively pursuing a goal. Management style can play a role in this. Greater employee input equals greater commitment. Then there is feedback, which is the recognition of employee progress and the expectations made clearer. Then there is task complexity. Tasks should not be too overwhelming and should be straightforward so employees can fulfill them. The pros of this is that it's challenging but not overwhelming and makes better performance, and the cons that the goals may be too vague. The goals can clash. They could only focus on goals, and failing to meet a goal could be detrimental. Then there is the 4-drive theory by Lawrence and Noria. The first is to acquire, which can be material things or status and influence. Employees may want the same remuneration as other businesses, monetary rewards, and opportunities. Then there is bond, which is to belong and to have a people-oriented management and positive corporate culture. To learn, which is to challenge employees' mentality through experience and opportunities to gain skills. And finally, to defend, which is to have a safe, non-threatening environment, fair treatment with no favoritism and discrimination, and employees are encouraged to speak up. The pros are that it's flexible and that the drives work independently, and the cons are that there are other drives that can exist and it can induce competition. Motivation strategies. First motivation strategy is performance-related pay, which means receiving financial incentive through rewards and monetary compensation. The first type of pay is pay increase, which is hourly or yearly salary. Gain sharing, which is employee suggestions to reduce the costs, and the costs reduced are distributed to the employees. Profit sharing, which is a percentage of profits are given to the employees, and the fixed percentage rate changes year to year. A share plan, which means shares are given to employees when profit is paid in dividends to shareholders, meaning increased profit for employees. And then there's bonuses, which is a one-off payment to a particular employee and group. And then commissions, which is from accomplished sales, and a fixed percent of the sale price goes to employees. The pros are that it is financially awarding, easily calculated, and only given for good performance, and the cons that it can cause jealousy, conflict, staff turnover if the pay is low, Employees can be expectant, and some employees may not be motivated by pay. Career advancement. Career advancement gives greater responsibility and opportunities for employees, fulfills some of Maslow's hierarchy, such as psychological and safety needs for short term, and for long term, it can satisfy self-esteem, social needs, and self-actualization. The pros that it can attain valuable employees, increase motivation, and satisfies achievement and responsibilities. And the cons are that promotions cannot just be created, competition for limited positions, resentment of other employees, and employees can be promoted beyond their capacity. And there is investment in training strategy, which means the finances and resources are put into teaching the employees. This satisfies Maslow's hierarchy. For short term, it satisfies physiological needs, and for long term, it satisfies self-actualization. The pros of this is that the business supports the advancement of employees, it improves skills, loyalty, and satisfies the theories of motivation. And cons is that it's a waste of time. Maybe some businesses can't afford it, and employees may leave to go to another job with higher qualification. A business may choose to use support strategies, which is beneficial for loyalty to the environment. Its pros are that it's low cost, it provides counseling services, encouragement, and a positive corporate culture. And cons is that it's difficult to support some employees, and employees can become dependent on support. Then there are sanction strategies, which is basically a form of penalty or discipline on an individual for deliberate recklessness and harming staff and customers. This can be a verbal warning, reassignment of duties, reduced salary, and in worst cases, termination. Fear of sanctions motivates employees and satisfies Maslow's hierarchy, physiological needs, and safety needs, the defense drive, and the four drive theory as well. Its pros are that poor behavior is improved and it stops inappropriateness, and the cons are that it reduces belonging in the workplace, causes resentment, and is only a short-term motivator. Training options. The first training option is on-the-job training, which occurs in the workplace. It uses equipment, machinery, and documents from the workplace and can happen during regular duties. External providers may come in to train with new equipment and software. Its pros are that it's usually low cost, you're working while you're training, uses real equipment, is a familiar environment, and you get immediate feedback. The cons, however, is that the trainer can vary in quality. Employees can obtain bad habits of older staff. Using the equipment for training disrupts production, and the trainer leaves their duties to train, and it can also be done in a noisy workplace. Off-the-job training occurs away from the workplace, usually in a specialized training institution such as uni or TAFE for the professional provider. Its pros are that it offers a wider range of skills and qualification, formal qualification for the person being trained, broader knowledge from the trainer, and it's more organized with no distractions. The cons, however, is that it's highly theoretical, expensive. The qualification may cause employee to leave the job, and skills are not needed for the job. Training to develop. There's different forms of training to develop, such as job rotation, meaning experiencing different jobs in the workplace, mentoring, or having formal business training with the MRA, the Masters of Business Administration. Performance strategies. To increase performance, you should measure by the objectives of the business, and this is done through appraisal, which is an assessment of employees in a period of time and can be checked up in frequent intervals. Methods of appraisal are the essay method, the critical incident method, basically the same as the essay, instead only writing the good and bad aspects of the employee. Comparison, which is when the employees are ranked by a predetermined performance criteria. And statistical. The pros of an appraisal are that it gives feedback, communication, relationship, and it's good for management when making decisions. And the cons that are it's time consuming and employees may expect a pay rise. Self-evaluation. Self-evaluation is when employees assess their own contribution and strengths and weaknesses. The pros of this is that the business see how staff perceive themselves and can highlight their need for training. The cons, however, are that employees may be dishonest and management has to take some sort of responsibility. Employees also may be ill-equipped to do this, and if they call for training, there's training expenses. Finally, there is employee observation, which is when you get feedback from different parties. A common method is the 360-degree feedback method. The pros of this is that it offers broad observation. Staff can adopt good work habits from other employees, and staff may value their peers' opinions better than other people's. And the cons, however, are that it's stressful when being observed. Some staff don't understand certain jobs, needs trust, and also they may expect a pay rise. Termination management. The first type of termination is retirement, which is voluntary and has no mandatory age in Australia, although they need to afford it. This includes mortgage, superannuation, and retirement funds, and the business helps prepare for retirement. Then there's resignation, which basically means quitting. This could be by promotion, boredom, wanting to start their own business, or a change in lifestyle. Employees resignating has to give notice. Usually an employee award says how much notice they have to give. And vacancies by resignation and retirement are not filled, so it causes natural reduction of staff over time. Redundancy. Redundancy is when a job is no longer necessary and can be voluntary or involuntary. The human resource manager will have the job of giving the person time to consult, time off, and info, and organize their redundancy pay. Finally, there's dismissal, which is when there is unacceptable behavior or a commitment of serious breach of contract. There's no notice required and just a dismissal summary. However, there can be unfair dismissals that can be lodged with an industrial tribunal like the FWC. Entitlements for termination are required by the law. Includes wage owing and salary owing, annual leave or long service leave. Transitions when being terminated are offered beyond the law and can be counseling, advice, or reduction of work days for smooth transition. This is for retirement, or can include outplacement services. Workplace relations. Workplace relations is the interaction of employees, employers, and representatives. Negotiating employee agreements. Agreements include wages, hours, leave entitlements, and flexibility arrangement. This is the job of the human resource manager, and they must be aware of legal issues, awards, and national employment standards. They must distribute the Fair Work Information Statement and train managers and supervisors to implement the agreement and to track its success using a KPI. And they also must gather feedback from the agreement. Trade unions. Trade unions represent the employees, and then there are employers' associations which represent the employers. And they formulate policies and logs of claims by union members. They're informed by legislative changes and get input into the 4-yearly review of awards. Peak union bodies are bodies that represent the employees. This includes the Victorian Trades Hall Council, which is a state body, or the Australian Council of Trade Unions, the ACTU, which is a federal body, which formulates and coordinates national union policies. They represent union movements in courts and tribunals and solves disputes with larger companies. Peak employer bodies, however, is a body representative of employer associations, and this can be the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the ACCI. The government/government organizations has 5 key roles: the legislator, the employer, economic manager, administrator of government policies, and they represent Australia internationally in the International Labour Organization. The Fair Work Commission, which is Australia's national workplace tribunal under the Fair Work Act. The Fair Work Commission makes awards in the national workplace relations system. They approve agreements at enterprise level. They resolve disputes and deals with dismissal. They regulate industrial action and set the minimum wage and minimum wage panel. They're not biased to any party, although they do not investigate underpayment claims and entitlements. This is the job of the Fair Work Ombudsman. The Fair Work Ombudsman enforces compliance with the Fair Work Act related to legislation, awards, and registered agreements. They basically implement the agreements done by the Commission. They help employers and employees by providing advice, education, and assistance on things like pay rates, workplace rights, and obligations. They provide information, they educate people about the fair work practices, rights, and obligations, and they resolve workplace issues by promoting and monitoring compliance with suspected breaches of workplace laws, awards, and registered agreements. They also enforce workplace laws and seek penalties for breaches of workplace laws, and enforce certain orders made by the Commission. Awards and agreements. Industry-wide agreements. Employees have their wages set by awards. They are established by tribunals, from submissions from unions and employer associations, from collective bargaining in that particular industry, and sets a minimum of employee standards. Using an award within a business is less costly, less time-consuming, with limited employee input, and provides a stable, secure safety net for employees. However, the cons are that it may need various awards and may not attract candidates for that position. The national employment standards are 1. Max weekly hours, 2. Right to work arrangements, 3. Parental leave, 4. Annual leave, 5. Community service leave, 6. Long service leave, and 7. Public holidays. 8 is notice of termination and redundancy pay, and 9 is compliance to the Fair Work Information Statement, and 10 is rights of employees. Then there are the 10 matters that can be included in modern awards. First is minimum wages, including disability and training wages, types of employment such as full-time, part-time, and outworker, arrangements for the hours during which work is performed, overtime rates where applicable, annualized wages and salaries, allowances, details of leave loadings, etc., superannuation arrangements, and procedures for consultation and representation and dispute settlements. Collective and individual agreements. An individual employee contract is based on an enterprise agreement. However, it's still applicable if an enterprise agreement doesn't exist. An enterprise agreement. An enterprise agreement is a collective agreement between a manager and employees within a union or group. It must include an expiry date, a dispute procedure, and individual flexibility, and provisions for consultation. The parties should attend and participate in meetings, disclose relevant information, respond and consider proposals, and make fair decisions. Once the negotiations within the agreement are concluded, it is submitted to the Fair Work Commission. It must be signed by both parties. Majority of employees must be consulted. It must comply with the employment standards, have nothing unlawful, specified date of expiry, and dispute settlement procedure and a consultation process. Pros of an enterprise agreement is that it's flexible for all needs. The contribution of employees can be rewarded. It's the better off overall test and can attract skilled employees. The cons, however, is that it's time-consuming, expensive, and have varying pay/conditions which can lead to industrial action. Individual contracts. A common law individual contract is governed by the Fair Work Act. Conditions can be better than an award and higher income, but it cannot be reduced. Dispute resolutions. Enterprise agreements have resolution procedures. The first is negotiation, which is the least formal way. It's a direct discussion with parties and is effective with consultative and participative management styles. Second is mediation, which is a semi-formal process. It involves a third party, which assists the parties to develop an agreement to their own terms. The party is not biased. It can be an independent representative from a business, tribunal, or a government agency. The discussions are confidential and is only legally binding if a contract is made. The pros are that it's less cost, the resolution is made in a shorter time, and positive relationships are maintained. The cons, however, is that it's not legally binding, one party is stronger than the other, and information can be shared during mediation. Then there is arbitration, which is the most formal of dispute settlements. It includes a third party as well, although this party hears all submissions and makes a decision in favor of one party. It is binding on the parties and is a formal process that includes evidence. The pros are that it's legally binding, compulsory, and the arbitrator makes the decision. The decision is quick and it's private. The cons, however, is that the parties have reduced control, it's time-consuming, expensive, relationships are not preserved, and is not a win-win situation, so there is a dissatisfied party. Finally, the Fair Work Commission can also help resolve disputes. In a conciliation process, a tribunal member brings two sides together to help make an agreement on the phone or in person. They ask to clarify the issue, to report back, and helps develop strategies. They can also perform an arbitration. The FWC is similar to a court hearing case with witnesses, lawyers, and advocates. Finally, there's the common law action, which is usually the last resort of a dispute. It's legal action before the court and is done in a hearing in the Fair Work Division of Federal Court.